Hello, children. Welcome to Enjoy Stories. In this series, we will be reading one story every episode. This is a part of my effort to encourage children to take to reading and collect books. Wishing all the very best. Today, we will read Chapter 4 of the short novel Heidi. This can be viewed under my playlist titled Junior Readers. We have seen in the last chapters that Aunt Dite had to send Heidi to the mountain home to stay with her grandfather because Dite had to take up a job in Frankfurt. Heidi settled well in the new environment. She made friends with goatherd Peter, and she often visited his home where his mother and blind grandmother lived. In winter, Peter was supposed to go to school, which he did not like a lot. Grandfather also was reluctant to send Heidi to school. The next spring, Dite returned from Frankfurt and wanted to take Heidi along with her. She said she had promised a rich family that Heidi would be a good companion to their sick daughter. Though initially Heidi was reluctant, the thought of getting back fresh white soft bread as a treat for Peter's grandmother made her leave her mountain home and journey to Frankfurt. Heidi was awed at the kind of buildings she saw in Frankfurt. She was taken into a grand house which had an ornate ceiling and large windows. But still, Heidi thought people were a little unfriendly. But when she met the sick girl Clara, she took a sudden liking for her and they both became very good friends. They both were under the care of Miss Rottenmeier, who laid down strict rules for them. In spite of all the comforts, Heidi always felt like a bird in a cage. She left home often, much to Miss Rottenmeier's anger. One day, when she tried to bring home kittens as her pets, it enraged Miss Rottenmeier a lot. She threatened to lock Heidi in a cellar with rats, but Clara supported Heidi and stopped her from getting the punishment. Still, this did not endear to Miss Rottenmeier at all. Let us read on further. Heidi Chapter 4 A Ghost in the House. Clara's father, Mr. Sisman, was often away on business, but when he came home, the mood in the house was brighter. He adored his daughter, and he was extremely happy to see the difference it made having Heidi as her friend. "How are you getting along?" he asked Heidi, for his mind had been troubled by the tales that Miss Rottenmeier told him. Clara jumped in before Heidi could speak. "Oh, it is such fun now that Heidi is here. We have kittens and games, and I am helping her learn her ABC." Heidi was not so sure it was going well. She missed grandfather and Peter, and she had been saving soft white rolls for weeks to take them back for grandmother. She worried about the goats and missed the sight of the sun dropping behind the mountains each night. Clara's father could see how much his daughter cared for Heidi. He was insistent that she would be staying with them. "What is more," he stated, "I want her to be treated as an equal to Clara and looked after in every way." One day, Miss Rottenmeier was putting Heidi's clean clothes in her cupboard when she came across the bread rolls that Heidi had been setting aside. "What is the meaning of this?" she roared, then sent Tinette to find the girl. Heidi began to explain, but Miss Rottenmeier cut her short. "I knew it. You are out of your mind," she said unkindly, and threw all the bread rolls away. Heidi flung herself on the bed, crying until Clara became quite worried. Eventually, she managed to calm the little girl, promising that she would get new fresh rolls on the day that Heidi planned to visit her old home. Miss Rottenmeier spoke to Clara's father. It was the last straw, she felt, hiding bread in a cupboard. The girl clearly had something wrong with her. But Mr. Sesemann just brushed it aside. He went on, "My mother is visiting next week and cannot wait to meet her. If it is too much for you alone," he added, "then soon you will have extra help." Clara was exceedingly excited at the prospect of her grandmamma coming to stay. She told Heidi how kind and wise she was, and how she would love Heidi as much as Clara did. Miss Rottenmeier spoke to Heidi about the visit. "You must not call her grandmamma, but address her as Madam," she instructed. As the old lady walked up the front steps, Heidi remembered to do as she was told. "Hello, sweet Heidi," said the lady in a very gentle voice. "Hello, Mrs. Madam," said Heidi, trying to be polite, and everyone smiled. "You can call me Grandmamma, just like Clara does," the lady said, and took Heidi's hand before they both pushed Clara's wheelchair into the study. Clara's grandmother had brought presents for them all. Heidi's was a book to help her reading, but as she turned the pages, tears sprang into her eyes. The pictures were of faraway places, from the high seas to the eastern palaces, but a scene with a shepherd and his flock made Heidi feel very homesick. She knew that Dite had hidden the truth and that she could not visit home whenever she liked. Oh, but she just wanted to see her old friends again. Grandmother would be getting very old, and grandfather must miss her help around the house. Grandmamma stayed for many weeks, and Heidi's reading improved with her patience and help. But the kind lady could sense deep sadness in the little girl. Each morning, Heidi appeared at breakfast with red eyes, as if she had wept during the night. Both Clara and Grandmamma tried to coax her to say what was wrong, but Heidi could not tell anyone, for she did not want to seem ungrateful. Eventually, Grandmamma's visit came to an end. A sense of sadness settled over the whole house, which seemed empty without her. Sadness was not the only emotion inside those walls. The servants muttered fearfully to each other about strange happenings that were spooking them all during the night time. Tinette locked her bedroom door each night. Even Miss Rottenmeier checked behind doors and kept away from dark corners and unused empty rooms. Each morning, the servants found the front door standing wide open. They all agreed there was a ghost in the house. They promised to keep it from Miss Clara so that she would not be frightened and become unwell again, but they agreed that someone ought to stay awake one night to keep watch. Sebastian was chosen to keep guard from the study next to the hall. His head drooped as midnight approached, but he stood and paced to keep himself awake. At last, in the small hours of the morning, he heard the front door creak and peeped outside his own open door. His blood ran cold as he caught sight of a white figure standing at the top of the steps. He gulped and shook his head, and when he looked again, the figure had disappeared. The decision was made that Mr. Sesaman must be called home at once. Clara's father returned the very next day, bringing with him his friend the doctor. They spent some time deciding upon a course of action. That night, the pair of them waited to see what would happen. Yet again, the sound of the front door was their cue to look outside. It was a little surprise to the wise doctor to find Heidi on the doorstep. She stood in her white nightgown, looking up and down the street. Mr. Sesaman gently scooped her up and led her inside for the doctor to examine her. They had found their little ghost. Heidi knew nothing about her wanderings at night, for she did it in her sleep. The doctor commented how pale and sad she seemed though. "Are you in pain? Are you happy here in Frankfurt?" Heidi gave a small sob. Miss Rottenmeier had told her not to cry all the time, but she could not lie and pretend to be happy. "I have no pain, but a heavy feeling here inside me, and I so wish I could see the mountains again." The doctor patted her hair and looked at his friend. They both knew what she needed to be well again. I'm sure you all have enjoyed reading Chapter 4 of the short novel Heidi along with me, children. Do subscribe to my channel and share it with your family and friends. We will meet again with Chapter 5 of this novel. Thank you.